Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream, we work on Django apps. We're going to continue on my Django app, the homeschool application that I've been building, working on a feature that we've worked on for a few streams related to a teacher checklist and some functionality that was requested by my users. We'll just get right into it. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me. Generally just chat about Django and Python and web development and that sort of stuff. If you want to support me, you're welcome to do that as well. I have accounts on Patreon at patreon.com/mblehman. I want to thank all those that do support me. Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Ryan, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Aaron, Philip, Shivan, Monty, Miguel. Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right, let's and I'm working through some new setup stuff today. All of my patrons, after many months of support, I've invested in some new equipment here, and I'm working out some new software changes. I got to figure out how to do transitions a little better. So hopefully nothing funny goes along. But if things look a little different, it's because they are different. But the core of what we're trying to build is not different. We're still working on Django stuff. So feel free. Let's see if this works. Oh man, what's going on here? Okay, well that didn't work like I thought it would. Karthikenan, I don't think I'm going to be working on much natural language processing or GPT-3. Good question. Give me a second though. I got to get the actual chat up. I can't respond to you all over here, which is weird. So I created a new app, and I can't actually put anything in the chat. So let's see if I can get over to the live side of this. I apologize for what this is. Not what I intended, but hey, what can you do? I need to pop that out and move that over. I will probably invest in a second monitor at some point so that y'all don't have to see any of this behind the scenes stuff, but that's not the reality today. All right, Carta, getting back to your question. So I focus pretty exclusively on the homeschool application, which is something I'm actually building for my family, and as such, I don't really delve too much into topics that don't really help that goal, and I don't really have any need at the time for any sort of natural language processing or GPT-3. That's super cool, fancy stuff. So I don't know that I'll be doing that, but maybe I'll write some articles on it in the future. You can go check out my site, mattlehman.com, and sign up for the mailing list there. And if I do write on those topics in the future, I can you'd be the first to know. Okay, let's get into the actual the feature that we're going to work on. So I was working on this teacher checklist, and I've got a terminal up here. So let's go to the teachers. We were creating this new model, and I think this is where we ended last time. We created this model. It's got a reference to the school year foreign key. You're welcome, Kartik. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. And the checklist has two things in it. It needs to have a connection to this school year for the foreign key. And then the other part of the feature was it needs to have a list of courses to exclude from what's being displayed. And let's see if we can get this working. Oh man, this is a new computer, so I don't even have a test account anymore. We're gonna have to do a little bit of test data to actually see anything. So we'll take the time to do that so we can actually see it. So I do at least have the local web server up and running. I got that far. So localhost, I don't even have the URL for that. This is how brand new this is. Nope, not localhost 500. Localhost 5000. And I apparently have the debug toolbar on. I gotta change that. Okay, I got some stuff to do. So it's all good. Oh no, I have not run migrations. Well, let's run some migrations. Okay, so this is a fresh clone on a fresh computer, and I got all the software installed, but I have no database data, but apparently I have no database tables either. So we're going to run manage migrate, and it should create all of our tables for the app. So we're going to let these run through. The DJ Stripe ones apparently take longer for some reason. I don't know why. But now we have, importantly, this file right here. So when I'm running locally, I use SQLite. It's a method that has worked well for me. Your mileage may vary. But now that this file exists, which represents the database, or is the database, and it has all the migrations applied, which means that all of the tables are in that SQLite database, we should now be able to return to the application. And now when I go to this login page, I'll get this. The next thing we need to do is create an account. This is actually, I can't log in because this is totally new, fresh experience. So let's create an account. Let's go through this flow. Oh, geez, Matt. Sorry, the sign up is closed at this time. Well, okay. Let's see. What else am I missing? This is fun, isn't it? Let's go to the sign up page. So I'm missing the sign up flag. And the funny part is I can't even get into sign up because I don't have an account there. So let's make a super user account so that I can bypass this stuff, create a flag, and then I can log in and create a regular user account. All of these are useful things if you're setting up your Django app for the first time. So I'm going to create a super user, which is a management command. It's create super user, I believe. And it will walk you through and make you pick some stuff. So I'm going to say this is my local account, so let's just do Matt as my username, Matt at mattlehman.com, and a password. I don't know if this one's going to work. Nope, password's too short. All right. There's a local crummy password that I got from working at, it was like some command that a coworker gave me once upon a time, and for some reason it stuck as a name that I use. But no, I don't want to bypass. I want to create a password, which you've now seen is Witty Pero. I don't know why I used that, and I don't know why I stuck with it, but I did. But I never use it on real sites that mean something, so don't try and hack my passwords hoping that Witty Pero will work. So now I have my new super user account. Returning to the app. The difference that we'll have to sign up at a different place. We can't go to the accounts sign up because, as you can see, that's closed. But we should be able to go over to the Django admin, which I have on Office. And since we created a super user account, I should be able to log in with that account. Good. So now I'm in as an admin, and I can go view the site as the admin, but I don't want to be putting data in here. Maybe I do. Let me think on that for a second. Well, we'll walk through this process anyway. I think I might actually want to have superpowers as this account, but we'll keep going. So back on the Office, the actual Django admin page, I want to come over to the flags. And so because I visited that page earlier and hit this flag, it created an entry in the database table. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the flag and enable this so that now if I'm logging in as a new person, I could create a new account, which I sometimes need to do. So let's have the flag on so that we can actually test that out. But as I'm thinking through this, like I can use the super user account and just put some data in there for purposes of demonstrating to you, because in practice, my super users are not really baked into any of my access control logic. So I'm not getting any kind of special experience most of the time, except with these small variants where a regular user does not see this Office and dashboard link that are there, which is how I know I'm a super user. So let's go back to the app. And here we don't even have any data, so there's like totally brand new experience. So we're going to walk through a little bit of this. We will create a new school year. And sure, this is as good a time as any. We're getting close to the school period. Let's say 9/1. No, let's actually include it because we're going to need some data to see for this stream. So let's say it's an early starting school year. of 8/15, and we'll go to next year, 8/15/23. We're going to have the school run on 5 days a week, like most schools might. Okay, so we have a new school year, and we need a grade level. I'm going to say 4th grade. That's one of the grades that one of my kids is in. And now we have a grade, and we'll do math. We'll add a course. And then we're going to need a couple tasks in order to see some stuff. So let's add a task and say, let's just call it task, and then replicate it and number them and replicate. Let's do 10 of them. Replicate 10 times. Okay. So now we've got 10 tasks for math in 4th grade for this school year. The system's telling me that we don't have a student, so let's go enroll a student, but we don't have a student to enroll, so we need to add a student. And I'm going to pick this name, and we're going to enroll Mark into 4th grade. Okay. So there's the basics of my app. We come over to the school year. My school year started on the 15th. We are now on the 17th, though, so there's only one thing to show here. There is another flag that we're missing. There's this new feature that we need to go turn on. And it didn't show up on the flag feature because the flag admin page, because I only have flags to auto create once they've been encountered in the app. But now that this page has been touched, if we return back here, you'll see there's a new flag that should be there, the teacher checklist flag. Let's go ahead and turn that on. And now we should be right where we once were before on a previous stream. We've got this teacher checklist button, which can take us to the teacher checklist page. And, ooh, that doesn't seem right. There's no data there. Wow, that's curious. Oh, you know what it is? These are set to go. That's kind of a bug. Not kind of a bug. That is a bug. Well, shoot. So my school year is set to start on the 15th, but this is the 14th, is the day that it's picking, and so it's looking for a school year that fits in August 14th, probably, where it is probably where it queried. In fact, let's go look at the code and see if that's correct or not. So it's taking the week date that's been put into the URL, which you can see is 22/8/14, and it's turning that into a week, and then it's trying to get a school year for that week. So the problem is that this school year is coming back, must be coming back as none. Go confirm that. Let's look over in the template, check the context. Schedules is an empty list. So I would have expected that to have some value. So let's go prove my little theory and modify the school year to see if I can make this suddenly have some data in it. So we need to edit the school year, and we'll change the start date to include the 14th. That should be enough. Yep. All right, that's totally a bug that I don't think I want to solve tonight, but it's probably worth recording. Let's create a new issue. And let's see, teacher checklist bug. I won't say it's a bug. I know it's a bug. Teacher checklist does not show school year on first week. So the school year was 8/15. Come on, Matt. 8/15/22. Start date. Sunday was 8/14/22. No school year was found, even though there was a school year later in the week. This edge case should be fixed. Okay, we'll give it toss a label on there. This wasn't found by a customer, it was found by me. And we'll record that as an issue. Okay, coming back to the problem though. The whole point was to just set up some data. I didn't expect to discover a bug in the process, but hey, that's what happens. For the checklist, we're going to need a second bit of data to do the actual filtering. And the part that I set up is I went in last time on the last stream and created a checklist item that would help filter this list. And I showed that it worked. I'm pretty sure. Now it's, man, my memory is fuzzy. It's been a while since I've actually streamed. And did it filter? Yep, I did. I added this filter schedules method to the checklist model. Look at the teachers app. Look at that model. It filters out schedules as need be. And so we checked that. I got all this code to work. It was modifying the list of schedules in place so that if anything was in this list of excluded courses, it will not be included in the list, which is what we want. So the problem, the rest of the problem that we need to solve is not implementing any more of this or implementing any of the display here. That filtering is already there and is already in a satisfactory state. What we need though is the actual creation side of it. So how are we going to create this? And that's the user interface that I've been thinking through. I wish I had a good way to sketch this out. Still don't have good tools for that. Maybe there's something else I need in the future. But how can I describe this? So on these pages where I have a pattern with a lot of these different kind of pages, I put an edit icon, a little pencil icon, kind of grayed out by every single header that represents a date. So if we went to 4th grade, you can see there's this edit icon. If we went to a course, you'd see the same thing. That's a consistent user interface pattern that I've used. And I need to do something similar with the checklist. So the checklist, what it's going to do, the way I'm envisioning this, is you can click a checklist and then it will bring up a page. And the checklist page would show you, show the user every course that is going to appear on their checklist. And they will, by default, all be checked. And so the plan is show everything be checked and allow the user to uncheck courses they don't care about. This is the feature that my customer actually wanted. She wanted the ability to say, like, I don't care about this course. Let me ignore some stuff. And so we want to allow them to uncheck some stuff. And then when they hit save, it will create a checklist object if it didn't exist and populate that with a list of excluded courses. So it's kind of a lazy creation of this checklist object because it's not needed unless they want to exclude something. And I thought through the cases of, well, what happens if they go back and check all of the stuff again? So they don't want to exclude anything. Having a checklist, there'd be one extra query that happens there, which is okay. but it would not affect the behavior to have a checklist be present, even if there's nothing excluded. And that's part of the way I wrote this class method over here. It doesn't, you can come out with a checklist and it would be fine. Actually, it would just return none. So it's not going to make any modifications if there are no excluded courses. I planned for that logic. So my goal now is to make a simple page that has checklist items for all of the courses in a school year. And that might be, I don't know, that might be the trickiest element of this. I don't think so. It shouldn't be, I hope. Wondering if the school year, let's go look at the school year model and see if what's on that model. Oh, I just noticed something. Gotta fix that too. I had a theme that would color this stuff, and it's not being colored right now because I don't have it set up. All right, something I'm missing from my other computer. So we want to look through the school year and see if there's a way to get the courses, or if I did anything like that. I don't know that I did. I have stuff for the breaks, stuff for tasks. There's a bunch of stuff on the school year. It's probably a little overloaded, to be honest, at this point. So it might be better anyway if it was on the course model. Let's go check. Maybe I thought of that. Let's go get the course model, and see what kind of things are on here. So we can get a grade level. We can get if a course belongs to a user. Not what we want. No. Okay. So I think what I want is a list of courses for the school year. I'm trying to think about how I want to display this, because there's lots of options. I could, at some level, just say, "Get me all the courses," and I can almost picture the feedback from my wife almost immediately of, "This is confusing because it doesn't match the list that I had in my head." Namely, well, it's hard to tell when there's only one, but on the week view, on the day view, there are courses here that show what is selectable and what's not. In fact, this is actually maybe hinting to me which way I should approach this. Maybe instead of adding a new method, I'm liking this. I wanted to, sorry, get the train of thought going. The way I design a teacher checklist is it is a formulation of the way I designed the week view. Again, all right, I got to put another course in here for this to make sense. Sorry, we're going to take one more. Let's do science and add a course and do some science stuff. And we want to replicate that 5 times, and we want to number it, just so we have some data to look at. Now, getting back to this, now we have 2 courses in here. Now we can start to see the pattern. So on the week view, there's going to be one of these blocks for each student. And then when we go to the teacher checklist, it just kind of takes that block line orientation and makes it vertical. That's essentially what the checklist is. This is a giant vertical display of the same data in the week view. And I think what I want is on the edit page for the order to be the same here. But so it would look kind of like saying mark, math, science, but wouldn't include these task tables. So that could work. But there's a problem with this. And there's a problem that's related to my data modeling for this application. And again, I'm going to need more data. So let's go add a little bit more data to complete this out, because a lot of families, including my own, will have multiple students. Let's create my other child, whom I love dearly. Let's add a course. Let's do history. Let's add some history learning and replicate that a few times with some numbered stuff. Okay, so now we've got second grade. Let's do one more art projects. This is not really fully representative of how my users actually use the service, because they don't often just repeat stuff like this, but it's going to give us some sample data so that you can at least be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. And we need another student. So this time we will add another student and enroll her in second grade. Now if we return to the week view, finally, here's something representative. You can see it's broken down by student, and it's broken down by courses, and then the checklist is the more of the same. So you see all of that. All right, one more modification. I promise we'll be done with this. We're going to be, let's see, both of my kids take piano lessons. So we're going to view this as a thing that is shared. This is the important part right here. Grade level, 4th and 2nd. And we'll add in some tasks here. Piano lessons with 5 of those. All right. So you can see it's for both grades. Now the way this shows up is they come out in separate sections. It's not like a split out. It's like repeated. So we get piano appearing here for Mark, and we get piano here appearing here for Faye. Checklist is the same way, or the actual checklist itself. It's got this section, and then the same thing is down here. Here's where this edit view would get complicated. I can make it so that it displays the student name and then the course just like this, and then excludes the tasks. But what's going to happen, and the challenge is, piano is going to show up multiple times. It's going to show up both for Mark and for Faye. And so I can totally imagine someone will click piano for one of them and not for the other. What happens there? That's the tricky part. I'm not really sure. So my natural inclination is to say, just give me all of the courses for the whole school year. There's only going to be one piano course. From that perspective, it is a pure list. But I think that's not going to work. As much as it simplifies my life, it's not going to work, because it will be totally common for Mark to have math and for Faye to have math, but they'd be different math classes with different tasks to do. So I can't just list out everything linearly and have math and math, because unless, a family, like unless my spouse writes math 4 and math 2 to kind of represent that it's for different grades, it's not going to be clear. She's not going to be able to disambiguate. So I'm going to have to deal with this fact that we have these shared courses. And I think what I might do is punt on that problem. I think that's the easiest way to tackle this right now, is make a version that does not care about the fact that, yes, that something can be listed twice. solve the problem for the normal case where people are probably not going to be hiding their shared courses. And then some point in the future, if somebody says, hey, I found this bug, I can say, yeah, I know, and then fix it. I think that's probably a good enough strategy to make sure that it don't gold plate this system, because I think it would be complicated enough. Okay, so if I do that, then I think the thing that I can do is rely on what? I rely on this schedules method. The same method that I use for the checklist, I can also use for the edit page. And now I'm just going to redisplay it. So I'm going to have to do two things. I'm going to have to get the set of schedules from this method, and I'm going to have to get the checklist itself in order to decide in the user interface, do I show this with a checkbox checked or unchecked? If a course shows up in my checklist object with as part of the excluded courses list, then I would leave it unchecked. I think that's the plan. And so then the following all the way through on what do I need for the rest of this. Once I get that displayed, I've combined this schedule, I've combined this checklist, I've got my list of steps. What it's going to happen is I'm going to be essentially be sending a form, or doing a form post that sends across the set of IDs that were checked. And so at that stage, once I have what's checked, and I can take the schedule, the set of courses from the schedule again, and I can say anything that wasn't in my list will be what they wanted to exclude. That's where the piano is going to be a problem, because they would have to uncheck both spots so it doesn't show up in the form. And I think that would give me the ability to create a checklist if I needed to, or not. All right, so that was a lot of talking, not enough code. Maybe let's look at some code. How do I want to build this? Let's start with I guess this would be the checklist edit page. And since we're going to be working on, okay, there's a bunch of pieces that we need. We've got a checklist. We know that we're going to need, so the only people that should be able to edit a checklist should be those that, oh man, I'm seeing a mistake in my modeling too. Ooey. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place tonight, y'all. Getting my head back into this. It's been a while since I've thought about this project. We're going to need to edit a checklist. In order to edit that, we need to think about the URL. So the checklist will have some kind of URL convention. I can show you other places that I've had edit stuff. I've chosen the name of whatever it is, an ID /edit/. So we're going to do that. So we'll start there. But we're going to quickly see that how I screwed this up. So I'm going to change some ID stuff along the way. So we've got checklist. This is the actual checklist viewing page. And so we need the checklist edit page. So I want to create a new path. And it is going to still be checklist, but I want to have this hash ID of PK. And then we will get rid of this rest of this stuff and change that to edit. It's really need to be, oh, I've not even run save before, so I had to install black for the first time. Hilarious. Okay. Yeah, okay. It got it in a single line, as I suspected it might. So we've got our checklist. We've got our checklist edit page. Oh, that's going to be a problem. Fun. Problem with lazily creating objects is that we can't resolve this URL all the time. There may not be an edit page. So we can't do this way. We're going to look up a checklist differently. Curious. Trying to think of like, how do we get the right, how are we going to associate the right checklist with the school year? I think the only way to do it is probably to use the same year, month, day that we were doing up here. Let me think on that. It feels a little wrong. Or there are other ways I could handle this. There are a couple things we could do. We could one way to tackle this would be to say, if the user visits the checklist page, we could make the checklist page have a side effect of creating a checklist on first view. I really don't like that because that is a good way that the user could fill up database tables with checklists they would never use. Because anytime they change that URL and do a GET request, it's going to have the side effect of creating a record if it didn't exist. So that's not really a workable strategy. I really want the checklist to only be created on saving. If they've gone to the edit page and hit the save button that's going to be there, that's when they should get that actual checklist record. So knowing that we have that constraint, we can't put any kind of ID there because it's not going to exist a lot of the time. So I think we could do this. We're going to have to depend on the display. We'll keep the int year, int month, int day stuff. That will be important, still remain. What is different about this? Oh, I see. And so we'll have that longer URL. And we'll say, this will be our edit checklist view. It doesn't exist yet. Checklist. Hey, Kwatli, welcome. Good to see you. Or good to see you virtually, I guess. I don't know what the right term is there. Hope you've been doing well. So we've got our new view path. And I think having this year, month, day will allow us to resolve a school year. Like that is, we'll have the same kind of logic that we have here of pulling out, building a weekday. So maybe there's a helper method that needs to come out here of like getting the school year that's just on this page. That could get the school year for the week or given the weekday. Yeah, I think we could wrap that up. I don't know if it would be helpful. It might save a few lines. And then we'd have the school year, which is what we need to do checklist verification. The challenge, one of the challenges I was thinking about was this authorization stuff. I recently changed my app so that every view must have some kind of authorization, and because I don't have a guarantee that there will be a checklist record to work against, I think I'm going to have to push the authorization checking into the view to make sure that it's doing the right thing, rather than relying on one of my authorizer functions. So we'll get the school year, and then the way that it will be able to save ourselves here is if there's no school year, we'll show them a different blank page that says, "Hey, I don't know how you got here, but there's nothing to do," or we'll just ignore it. Wrap it all in an if guard, and then say that's enough. Okay. I think I'm convincing myself this will work. So let's start and sketch it in. Oh, vacation. Good times. I had a vacation a couple weeks ago. Really nice. Got to be with my family. So I hope you get to enjoy time with your friends and family, whoever's around you, and take a good break. It's needed every once in a while, right? So I'm not going to do this TDD at first. I just want to get the view in there. I want to sketch it out. We can come back and fill in with some test code later. I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to authorize allow anybody to authorize it, and then I'll move the authorization checking into my view function in a little bit. So we'll worry about that in a moment. And so we need well, it's the same signature as this one up here. The exact same signature. So let's take that. And we're going to add edit in front of it. That's the only difference. And for the moment, we'll just put pass on it so it'll appropriately compile. I think we're done with that. So we can see these side by side. And now it's going to be happy. All right. So next, we need a documentation string. Edit the checklist to allow users to mark courses to exclude. That's the whole purpose of this checklist page, what we really care about. And ultimately, we're going to need to do a render on a template of edit checklist, which doesn't exist yet, but we're just going to do a little bit, get a failing page, and then work backwards is my plan. Can't figure out the context. I am going to say, wait, why did I need today? Oh. Do I prefer using function-based views or class-based views? Recently, so I think my opinion has changed over the years. There was a time period where I was a big fan of class-based views. I thought they could solve tons of problems. But I think I've come around to the idea that a function-based view, if you do a good job of moving your business logic out and into your models or some other place, a function-based view can be extremely tight and show you exactly what's happening with no mystery. So, I mean, I don't know how you all feel, but for me, this checklist view that I've got is pretty comprehensible. It gives a good idea of it's breaking it up into a few phases of what it's trying to do, and then it renders some stuff, and that's sort of it. So I appreciate that about function-based views and their simplicity. But class-based views can be powerful too if you need them for richer features. Like if I was reaching for Django REST framework to do some REST APIs, I would definitely use class-based views, and that's what they strongly favor over there. I mean, there are function-based options with DRF, but I find that the class-based makes a lot more sense because it feels declarative, because there's a lot of class-level attributes that are used with those sort of APIs. That's sort of a different area. All right, let's swing through on the rest of this thing by going to our checklist page, and here where we've got teacher checklist, we need that edit button. I never remember how I did this, so Let's bring up course detail, probably has it. So we've got, here it is. At the end of this, there's a link. That's a hyperlink. It's got an SVG, which will be that pencil icon. And we're going to put this right inside the H1 after this stuff. But I think that's going to, based on... Yeah, we'll see. We might have to do... I don't know. Let's just try it out, see how it goes. I don't think the styling is going to quite work the way we think it might, but I could be wrong. Right now, it's not going to render at all. I'm not going to show you that much because I put in a course ID and it's going to fail on a lookup. Let's refresh and see what happens. Whoops, that's not going to work. Well, that's funny. Yeah. What? Huh. I have no idea what happened there. Maybe because my middleware, denied middleware, does not define a denied middleware attribute class. Yeah, it does. I wrote that code. All right, this is what I expected to see. There's no reverse match because we're passing in this course.id resolves to none, and then it's like, what are you talking about? I can't do a course edit. So we didn't actually fix that page. We just kind of copied it from this other area. So we want to say edit checklist is really the thing that we're after. The rest of the path part of the SVG is okay. And now we want to come in here and change all of this stuff to be teachers, which is the app namespace, and edit checklist. And all right, so now we need also, remember, we've got year, month, and day as part of that, the arguments that are expected to make that work. So we also need to pass in the year, month, and day, which I don't remember. Core app HTML. Where did I put this thing? Teacher checklist flag. Here it is. First day. Oh man. So I added some context there. So this needs to have in it, we've got access to the week. Ah, here it is, first day. So we need to change course ID to be week, first day, and then year, week, first day, month, and week, first day, day. Now, with any luck, this will render something. Oh, cool. And it actually looks styled appropriately too. So, check out the bottom left corner. Hopefully y'all can see it. I think I sized my window appropriately so you can see every inch of my browser. Aside from like the tabs themselves, I don't bother to show that part. But look at the bottom left, and you can see we've got a link that is resolving to this same URL, basically, with edit attached. But if we click it, we're going to get a no template error. Template does not exist. So we've got create a template. I'm going to start by copying the same template because I think we're going to reuse a ton of it. And we'll say edit checklist HTML, put in the same stuff. And now if we refresh, it's going to look exactly like our, well, no, it won't. There's different context, but we should at least have the template available. Okay, so now edit checklist is failing because we didn't pass in the week. So we didn't put that in our context. So let's go ahead and do that. We don't have a week. We're going to start with some duplication first. And we will clean up later. Albert, you totally can. Just start. I get it. I have been working with Vim for, oh goodness, since 2006. So long time. And I think that's all my fingers know these days. I don't know VS Code, shortcuts. I don't know any of that stuff. It is a good thing to, and this is advice I give out frequently, it's not just Vim. So whatever your editor you choose, try to find one, stick with it, learn the shortcuts. You can take away that much advice, I think that's a win. Because what you'll find is I do try and avoid, like, unless I'm using the browser, even then, some people are like, you can get Vim kind of plugins for the browser. That's where I sort of draw the line, because I think the browser is just not really well designed for pure keyboard navigation. But if you can stay in your text editor using shortcuts as much as possible, then I think you'll be a lot faster as a developer. All right, so I put the week into the context. So now this should render. But I didn't add the schedules back, which is why we're not seeing that table of stuff. But why don't, just for the sake of taking everything as a copy, let's take it all. Let's basically replicate the whole view, which probably is where I should have started a bit with to begin with, because a lot of it's going to be really similar. So this is tons of duplication. We're not going to commit it like this. That is not going to fly. But it gives us a starting place of something that works, and then we can modify down of like the part that is different. For instance, is the actual template. We're rendering a different template, so we can come in here and let's just take out the middle stuff. Right? This will give us the list of courses that we want. It doesn't have quite the styling that I need, because I need more spacing between the last course presented and the second heading there for a second student. So, but the basics of the data is what's in here, is what I care about. And if we go and look at the data structures that are available from the schedules, we should have the course, with any luck. Yeah, we've got access to the course object, and that's the important element. Yeah, exactly. If I don't replace the duplicate code, I'm going to be stuck with some technical debt management later. And a little bit's okay. It's like I've given some rules, some kind of rules of thumb in the past on other streams, where I call it like once, and this is probably not from me. I've probably heard it from someone else, but once, twice refactor is something you'll sometimes hear, or you heard it just now from me. Once, twice, wow, can't type over there, refactor. The idea is maybe duplicate, like, don't be overeager to dry up your code. Because maybe what seems initially like pure duplication, if you let it sit for a while, you realize, oh, it's something similar, but it's actually different. And if we went and immediately tried to refactor it and extract the thing out, only to discover later, oh, you know what, it's different. So now I'm going to add a Boolean flag to capture that difference, and now you're suddenly like, you've done yourself no favors by doing that. So I think this amount will probably merit, like, there's some stuff that I definitely don't think will change here, like the extraction for getting a week from the weekday. That's definitely something that doesn't need to. I don't know. There's some stuff that I probably need to pull out of here, but we'll get to that later. So now we have our courses present, and we need to rework this into a form, basically. The form is going to wrap around this whole set of schedules. There are some challenges here, like, I don't know what. Here's the challenge. Well, we're not far enough along for me to really present that yet. It's not going to make sense without some context. So what's the next step to do? Let's stop for a second. I've been talking a lot, got the basics. What do I want to do now? Do I want to bang on the a form so we can get some data to look at? Do I want to work more on the view and in anticipation of the form? I think the right thing to do is probably make it so that we can submit a form, even if this view is not set up to handle that submission yet. Really, right now it's just a get request. It needs to be able to do both get and a post. It needs to be a form class. There's probably a bunch of stuff that needs to come in here, and it's not right for that yet. But we can work our way up to it, and when we can do it so that we can submit a post, and even though the post request is gonna not give us what we expect, we can see the data that we'd kind of get out of this. It'll also give us a chance to transform this header thing into something that's like clickable. So the question becomes of how do I want these to be clickable? Let's look at some other examples. So this variant here has a task where they can click off checkboxes like that. That's one style that I have in the app. I'm trying to think of other places I have checkboxes. So that was the daily page. Daily page. It has like custom handling because it's doing other things too. I'm trying to think of other places I have checkbox. Course form is like showing the different days for the school. That's super custom. Task. Sorry, I know a lot of these don't mean anything to y'all, so I won't spend too long looking through this list. I think what's important to me is that I like targets that I don't like to have to like click a checkbox specifically. I think you see that in like a lot of apps will do that kind of thing, and in my opinion, that's no fun. I'd rather like looking back at this, I can click. I don't have to click this checkbox. Now this is an icon, so it's not a pure example, but the point is like you can click anywhere on this target on the text and get it. So similarly, when I do put on this edit page, when I do have checkboxes here, I don't want to have people click the checkbox. I'd rather have them be able to click all of math or science or piano, and then do the right thing. Which is not a hard thing to do in HTML forms, just to be really clear, but you just have to design that thought in there. So let's start a form, shall we? So we need a form. The method is going to be a post. We're not going to do this as a GET request. That would be not the right thing to do. The action is going to be the same page. So I could leave this as an empty double quote, or since it's not anything different, I don't have to put anything at all. And then our form is going to include everything that is in this schedule loop. So I think that much is a good start. And then we need some buttons. We need a save and a cancel button. The daily, what I want to use. Let me see. It has this justify end. Okay, maybe that's fine. Let's try. Justify end. Let's take this and see what happens if we just drop it in there. Don't think it's going to be quite right yet because, oops, wrong way. We don't have any styles on the form yet. Form. Oh, maybe so. Maybe that will work. Okay, let's see. All right, cool. It was better than I thought. It's too wide, way too wide, so we can at least constrain that part. So we will do class equal max W XL. I think that's right. All right, so now we've got a save button that's in a reasonable place. We don't have any checkboxes yet, but we could, actually, we probably have enough because it is a submit. It's a type of submit. It's in the form. So the submit should trigger a send to the backend. So let's bring up the network tab, make this a little bigger, and hit save. Oh, we don't have a CSRF, so that was a thing that we need to include. CSRF. CSRF, if you're not familiar with it, is a security feature that is a way of protecting the kinds of the data that gets submitted is there are systems in check or systems in place that Django has that checks that it is you who's actually submitting the data. And then let's clean this up a little tiny bit. All right, so we'll go back, refresh this page, clear all that out. I'm going to hit save. And right now, the post is rendering, it's coming back to this page because that's what we did. It returned a response, and so that's how it's handling it. But that's not really the desired behavior. That's just what's happening at the moment because we're not doing any special handling on a post request. What was important, though, is we wanted to see what are we actually sending. And currently, all we're sending is the CSRF middleware token. That's what that attribute that we just added to the template did. It added a hidden form element, basically. In fact, you can see the source of that and see, where are you? Here it is. So that template tag added this thing to this. And it's what Django needs to verify some security checks. So it sends in this long value that's a hash of some stuff. All right. Now, we want to be able to submit. So right now this is doing nothing. It's basically a pass-through that allows us to see what are we sending. We could click this a bunch of times and get new requests and see the data and inspect it over and over again. And so as we iterate through this, we can kind of create the things that we need to create. So I want to do, let's do, is there any style on this? There's no style on that. That's not what I thought it would be. I'm surprised I don't have more specific styling options here on this checkbox. So let's just put it in for now and put in the text after it, and then come back and clean it up. So what is our checkbox going to be? It's going to be an input with a type of checkbox. That's right. And the important part is what we're going to name it, because we have to send some data back to the backend to pull out these IDs and actually use them and look them up. And so the name is important, which is not on that input over there. That's funny. So what's going to be the name? For the moment, we can just say course ID. That should work. So it's going to be course detail course ID. Each one of those will be unique but that's not true. Get to that in a minute. So if we've got a checkbox here, this alone, well, we're going to ignore the value part for a moment. Should put some checkboxes and stuff in front of some stuff. So now we've got checkboxes. And if I click one, let's click a couple. Got math and piano. And if we click save, now if we look at our post, now we have the ID of the course as the key, and it's on as the value. So that is, in theory, enough. However, that's going to get pretty annoying to parse on the other side, because if I just said, hey, give me everything that's part of the form payload and go look that up on courses, then you're going to get CSRF middleware token as the thing to look for. So really what I'm going to do eventually to filter this out is put a prefix in front of these names, and so that I can look through the post data specifically for anything starting with that prefix. And I'm going to add course dash in front of it. Now, I'm not going to submit this again, but now it would be course dash J7ZX620. So that is how we can identify these. Now, there's this other problem where I said there's going to be unique, and that's the problem. And this is the problem that I said earlier I'm going to punt on figuring out a solution for. And that's this attribute, this input right here. This is QRZ YG Y8. But the same thing, because piano is also down here, and it's the same course ID, that part doesn't change. It's the same name. So if either the way this works, the way this is going to behave for the user is once these things are all checked, we're going to come back in and make sure that they're checked if they're not on that checklist of excluded stuff, which should be everything by default because we're not doing any checklist collection yet. The only way that piano would be added to the excluded list is if someone went in and unchecked piano here and here, because either of them could show up in the form data. So that's a bug that I'm going like eyes wide open that's going to be a problem, and I'm going to leave it that way right now because I don't think it's a super common case that people are going to complain about. I don't have a lot of users, and yeah, I'll wait until one of my users and customers comes back and says, "Hey, this is weird. Can we fix this?" And then I'll prioritize it appropriately. So I think we have all of the elements that we need for the actual form submission to do the work. We are missing, I want a button that will go next to this that says cancel. So we got to go get one of those somewhere. And then the styling of this is just atrocious right now. So let's fix that first. So the way you can make something select both and have the text also select the button is by wrapping it in a label. And I don't have any examples here. Where is a label? So we want, and you have to make an association to the right. I'm not stating this very well. Come on. Check out this sign up page. So we've got the label. It has this for attribute, and it says ID email. And that expects that whatever input it's connected to, you're connecting it to the ID of the input and not the name. And that's where, well, that could be a problem. That can be a problem for our double piano case. I'm interested to see what will happen there. But we're going to try it out and see how this goes. So let's start with a label. And we're going to give it, it's for, the label is for, oh, I have a thought about how we can possibly break up the fact that the piano is in there twice. So for the moment, we'll just say it's for the same thing that we did above. Course detail .course .id. I think this is going to change with the idea that I have, but I want to do this for now. And then we want to end the label, and we want the label to have course detail .course, which is going to get the string representation of the course, which is the course name. All right, let's just see what that does. We should just see more labels of the course names. No, stop trying to send that. Okay. So we see math that's in that way, and then math by itself. So now, if I move the input box inside of here, and I need to do one other thing, I need to say ID equals all that stuff. Let's just copy it this time. Now the label is associated with this input in the way I've written this. Hopefully that's clear. Okay, so if I hope if I click math, it should click the checkbox. It did. Good. Now here's where it might get a little confusing. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. If I click piano, it does just piano there. Ah, here's the bug. Check that out. If I click piano down here, it's clicking it up there. What's going on? Anybody know? Here's what's going on. One of the aspects of HTML is that on a page, every ID must be unique. So when this label says that it's for this, it's for an ID. And there's only one element on this page that is allowed to have that ID. And it's this checkbox right here. If we inspect it, you can see it says course QR Z YG Y8. So even though later on there is another element that also has that ID, same ID, the first one wins. So that's a problem. That's a problem if you want this checkbox feature to work. How can we get around this? I think I want to get around this by saying, forget the ID of the course. That's not the important element. We have everything that we need right here. And so instead of doing this, we can change out this stuff with the for loop counter as the ID. That'll work. What we send to the post, the actual post data, is associated with this name attribute. Important. I got this wrong for a long time when dealing with HTML. Posts send form named elements, not IDs. They ignore the IDs, which is super strange. But that's the nature of it. So if we change this to the fact that we're in a for loop, oh, boogers. Which for loop? I wanted the for loop. There's two for loops here. So my thought was, well, let's just put an ID on this, like a counter, so that each row gets this. But that's not going to be how this works, because we have an outer and an inner one. So it's not just a straight like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't match with our data here, but that idea of it's going to be repeating based on which for loop it's in. All right, so let's get a little more clever here. We can do something else instead. What we do know is will vary is that we can make a different kind of ID, one that is based off of the student, and then on the inner part of this, we know that we have a course detail. So let's keep the course ID and keep that half. And so we're going to keep the same thing over here as well. And I'm going to change this input so I can see this a little better. It's getting a little off my screen here, and I know I don't need to do this, but I hope it'll make more sense in a second. So we got the name. Now the thing I want to change is to have this be the schedule student ID. And then we're going to do the same thing on the ID attribute. So by doing this, I've effectively created a unique identifier for every input, because it's a combination of a student and a course, which is going to be unique. Jennifer, good question. I can absolutely tell you about the functionality, give you some context. Let's see. I'm making School Desk. You can go there right now if you want. It's at the schooldesk.app. It's a real application. It, as you can see from the screen here, it's a homeschool planning application. So in my household, I have 2 children, and we homeschool my children. My wife does the vast majority of it. I teach programming as an elective, but she's a superstar and teaches everything else. But what I've done for our family in this regard is built a scheduling app that works basically like this. You feed it a schedule, not even a schedule, you feed it a set of tasks that you want to get done. And the way School Desk works is it creates a list of when should you be doing each task. Just first in, first out kind of thing. And has a bunch of logic around handling breaks and different days that classes run and all this stuff that might factor into when a school year in a homeschool will run different classes on different days. And it allows my spouse to do all of her planning for school. And so I've got this for her, but then I also went ahead and did the work to make it available to other homeschool families out there. So I have a handful of customers, and I'm actually currently, this feature that you're seeing this evening is a checklist feature that shows the data in a way that a customer has requested, so that she could like print it out and get like her own checklist point of view of like, this is how I want to see it. This is not my wife, it's one of my other customers. So that's the app in a nutshell. And I said at the beginning of the stream, you might not have been here, that this is a brand new computer, so I'm actually missing a lot of data in the test account that I have. Well, I'm on the production site now, so that's not where you want to see this. So there's not a lot of data to look at right now, but you can see like this is what a typical view sort of looks like. It's got different students, the different classes they're in. I'm only showing a sample of 3 classes here per student, but in a real homeschool context, this will be 8, 9, 10, however many classes your kids would, or whoever's kids would run. My kids are represented here. My app does definitely not have video streaming functionality. It's not quite that fancy. It suits the needs of doing scheduling, and it focuses on being simple is the real objective. And once beyond those scheduling needs is like other stuff that I'm leaving out. I have seen homeschool apps that they kind of have a kitchen sink approach. I saw one. What was one of them? Because I've done some research on what's the competition out there, and one of them you could add your phone number. And this, I don't know. Maybe you all think this is a great idea. Maybe you should add it. I don't know. You could add your phone number to your account, or a bunch of phone numbers to various accounts, and from the app, you could send text messages to whoever's phone number that is. So you could be like working on your like it had like grocery list features. It was way more than homeschool planning. It was like whole life planning, and you could send text messages from the app to do random stuff. It seemed really bizarre to me, but anyway. So mine's very focused on just doing the scheduling piece and leaving the rest of life planning to other tools. Let me jump back and see what Jason's comments are, and then I'll get to your next question here. Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. It's been a long time working on this app, so but it has been fun, and I hope that people like yourself have learned along the way. Yeah. I am a very experienced developer. I've been programming professionally since 2006, and I can tell you, even whatever year this is, 2022, so however many years that is, a long time, you're still going to make plenty of mistakes as a developer if you stick with it. Hopefully that's encouraging to people. It's meant to be. It's not meant to be like this job is impossible. It's meant to be like, hey, even those of us that have developed a lot of skills along the way still wrestle with things. Yeah, that SMS message feature in that app can do all sorts of stuff. I think it was more like you could put in your entire family, and you could send text messages to your kids if you had teenagers, or I don't know, maybe you allow your younger kids to have phones. That's not the way we handle things in my house, but you could do all sorts of stuff to message people. It was interesting. It was just not something that I wanted to build as like the kitchen sink approach to scheduling. Anyway, let's get back to the checklist feature. Finish up some of these thoughts here. So we now have our label that is unique for the student. It's unique and it includes the course. Those two pieces of information should account for both the outer loop and the inner loop of this for loop. I have a building SaaS playlist, Jennifer, but if you go back to episode 1, which is horrible, like I've learned quite a bit about streaming in that time. It's for a different app. It was for a previous app that I was working on. This one, and I really should just memorize the number, or you know what I should do? I've got a piece of paper here. I should just write it down because I get asked the question enough. Somewhere around episode 40 something, I think the title of the episode is New App Who Dis, is when I start this homeschool application. So it's been a journey that I've been working on for a couple of years at this point. So no special playlist, because this playlist includes every stream. But yeah, episode at 40-ish is where this particular app starts. Okay, so we've got the label for and the ID matching up. So now, with any luck, if we refresh this page or come back to it, now if I click piano here, I should be able to click piano here, and they're separate. Good. Cool. We're also at this point prepared to get rid of this duplicate course name, but maybe I should keep, let's try to keep the styling. See how that looks. So we need to put a class. I appreciate the suggestion, Jennifer. Playlist management has never been a thing that I've had much skill at. Let's take all of the stuff that's in here and drop it in here. And let's go ahead and delete this and see how this looks. I have a feeling it's not going to look fantastic, but one step at a time. Oh, that's surprising. It's not even... we need a break. So the label, what this is telling me is that the label element is not a block level element. If you know CSS stuff, it's describing the flow of the label. So I think if we just add block to this class, it'll change it so that they'll all go vertically. And a block level element is an element that has definite definition and ends in a new line. I don't think that's the official. Oh man. CSS block is what the phrase that you want to look for, versus inline block. There's probably tons of resources that you could learn about CSS blocks. Let's see if this an element that appears on a new line. All right, that's a decent enough description. So that helps us to cause our labels to wrap here, and then we could do good question. I stream Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's where I'm in Maryland. And I don't stream every Wednesday. I'd probably stream about 3 out of 4 Wednesdays a month. I have a conflict with, I also run my local Python meetup here in Frederick, and that happens to be at the same time every second Wednesday. So I don't have a rigorous schedule of constantly streaming. But I could probably get about 3 streams in a month at this time slot, 9 p.m. to usually a couple hours. And you can follow me on Twitter. I also have a Discord, which I don't have connected on this new computer. Man, I need a better link for you. I apologize. But you can go to... I would need a lot of customers for daily streams. That's a good point, Jason. So Twitter, MB Layman is my Twitter handle. You can follow me there. I think I do a decent job of like letting people know that I'm about to stream. Come on, where? Yeah. So 4 hours ago, I let it be known. I think I might have forgotten to mention on Discord today, but there's a Discord you can join as well, where I try and help people out. I don't have enough time to offer like consulting or anything. Some people have asked about that, and there's not enough time in my life to do that. But the Discord is kind of a low-tech, asynchronous channel that I can use so that people can drop their questions and I come back later and answer them. No Instagram, it's not my thing. But yeah, that's my primary mode of communication is probably Twitter. And then if I'll try and remember to get that Discord link and get that plugged in somewhere accessible. Maybe it needs to go on my YouTube profile or something. Okay, we're so close with finishing off the styling for this page, and we can actually get into the data and get into the form part of this. So let's try and get there. We want to what's wrong with this so far? I think right now this label needs more spacing. Or the label itself has some spacing, but see there's the text in there. And so I think maybe we need to put a class on the input. Let's try that. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do class, and we will do some, let's try padding of 2. We want the padding to be on the right. So PR of 2. Let's see what that does. Oh, nothing? Really? Come on now. Is that not big enough? Might not be. Let's try margin. Okay, there we go. That one's actually affecting things. That's too much though. So let's drop it down. So now we've got a bit of space between the checkbox here. It's feeling maybe like too much. I want them like it, and it's feeling like too much because there's like full symmetry around all of this. And it feels like this label is not actually connected to the checkbox. That feels strange. So let's try. That looks better to me. The other thing I want to do is steal. Whoops. No. Get out of here. Steal this part. I want to use hover BG grade 200 with rounded. Let's put that on the label. We'll do hover BG gray 200 rounded. Let's see if that does what I want. I appreciate all the suggestions, Jennifer. There's a lot there. Those are pretty low-key stream. I do appreciate the thoughts. I try and get out regular content. But I have no grand ambitions for this stream in the sense that I have a day job. And so I'm not trying to make this my full-time gig. This is more like sharing what I can and forcing myself to work on a side project. But I do appreciate your thoughts, and I will take your suggestions to consideration. All right, so this clearly, I like this selector, so this makes it nice. It makes it really clear that what I didn't even notice before is that this is fully selectable by this whole row. And that makes it a nice gigantic target. Now, what I think this failed to do though, is we don't have the margin on the other side of the checkbox. And so we've got now this weird behavior where the checkbox is flush against the label box, and it's really evident. So if we change this to be margin of 1, or how about let's not do all the way around. Let's just do on the X dimension. We get some space there, but still doesn't feel not quite what I want. I think what I want to keep the 1 spacing on this side because this feels like the right amount of space, but I want to give more space on the other side. So we're going to split this up. We'll return it to margin right of 1, and then we'll add margin left. Let's try something small. We'll start small, just 2. Oh yeah, that's starting to feel right. And we've got really short names for courses right now, but there, somebody could have like, I don't know. I'm not going to come up with a good long course name right now, but you can imagine some kind of long course name that strings multiple words together so that fills up the space. So even though these are short even though this bar is long, maybe that's okay. Let's try one more modification, and maybe instead of extra large, I can do large. Yeah, that's probably all we need. And so these are nice and easily clickable. They're really obvious, and they've got, it goes for the simplicity style that I like with the theme of my website, which is just enough to kind of hint of this is what I want, and make it easy to use. Simple is always the driver. Okay. Let's do one last submission to see the network traffic. Now we've got this. We'll do a submission here, and we'll see everything that got submitted with our request. Oh, look at that. I did not anticipate that. So it has turned this course, it recognized that it was double. It recognized that both of them were checked, and is representing it that way. That's fascinating. What is it doing in the raw request? I think it's probably just having it twice. All right. So we've now got our data. I'm curious as to how that post request will play out later. All right, but we can go back to our teacher views here. And now we need to think about we need a Django form ultimately, I think. And so we want to pass in, we want to take different actions based on whether this request is a get or a post. Some of it's going to be the same, like building the context, and will potentially be the same. So continuing down the path of not doing any unit tests for this. Let me read your comment here, Jennifer. Yeah, I think for this particular stream, I am not really looking to like get down to teaching the basics of algorithms. I do some of that in my local community. I teach people wanting to get into languages for the first time. The context of the stream is mostly about teaching people via a live application to see an app in the wild, and see an app that knows that and anybody viewing this can know that it's serving real customers, and you can go check out the code and explore it. Like, all of this is open source. You can visit github.com/mblayman/homeschool and go check out everything that I've done, and see how it's been built up. And I think what's interesting about the stream as well is that it shows the journey that I've gone on, because I think where a lot of people get hung up or struggle as new developers is you jump straight to seeing the finished product of products that you respect. Like maybe you mentioned Instagram earlier. Maybe you're an Instagram user and you're like, hey, this is pretty slick. But that product has taken years and hundreds of engineers to build. And even a small app like mine, it may not seem like the most complex app in the world, but it is accumulated over the course of a long period of time. So all of the features that you see here, while maybe not impressive to the average viewer, there's a lot here that goes into building that up. And so that's the strength of the stream. Is like you go back all the way, you can see how it starts with a kernel of basically nothing and builds it up into a minimum application that works, that I and I showed the process of how I engaged with my customers, get them exactly what they needed initially, which was my wife was my first customer. And then I've been building it up from there. And I'm now at a point where it's fairly steady. Like the application does what it needs to do, and it's about how can I improve this. And so that's my objectives with this stream. And then of course, as people have questions, I try and share along the way. Yeah, I appreciate all of those thoughts. I'm glad you see me as a competent programmer. All right, so to bring it back to where we need to go. So we now have the HTML form. We're able to post the data, and we need to send this data off to a form object. We're going to use a Django form to do this. It will be a pretty custom Django form, but it will follow the standard Django form conventions, which is to say we're going to call form is valid and form save if the form was valid, and otherwise we will be doing a render of the view. And so that's going to be how this thing gets processed. So we need to change some stuff about this. So whoops, we need to change this to look more like a form-based view that uses a function-based view that uses a form. And I think that we can have some success there by searching for request method and taking any of these that have request method post because this is the pattern that needs to be used. So this one might not be the best example because it doesn't use a form object. Let's go for one that likely does. Yeah, that'll work. We can have these side by side. So on a post, we need to pass to a form. And the form itself is going to need, what? It's going to need to be able to create a checklist as needed. And a checklist is going to need the list of excluded courses, and it's going to need the school year. So minimally, our form object will need a school year. So we can assume that we have to get to the school year object like as seen here. Why do I like Twitter? Instagram is a very visual tool. Now, this is biased because I don't use Instagram, but I perceive it as a visual tool, showing off images and not really being about text communication. Also, Twitter has a history of being like a tech tool first. Like I was into Twitter before it was like a popular nationwide platform, back when it was really just tech people on it. And I think that's my momentum there. I can't explain why Elon Musk likes Twitter. I'm not in the mind of Elon Musk. All right, but what we can say is if the request is a post, then we're going to do some stuff. If it's not a post, we're going to render. That's where we're at. So the form processing is going to happen in this if clause. And otherwise, we're going to say, just go ahead and render some stuff. But in order to create our form, we need this school year. So we need to have all of this stuff be above here. So the school year object we're going to pull it out from the weekday that was passed by this checklist, and it'll give us a school year object. And assuming we have that school year object, and we have a request post method, then we can actually do the processing that will create a checklist. By the time we're done, we're going to do exactly what's shown over here, where we will have a form object, we'll call form is valid, and then we'll save the form. Saving the form will actually create a checklist object if none existed, or update a checklist object if necessary. And then we're going to return back to the checklist itself so that the user can see that view with any modifications that they made. So if they ignored a bunch of stuff, all of those ignored things should appear there. And that's the pattern. So I'm going to sketch this out with what I think we're going to need. And I might say that might be where we need to stop for the evening, but maybe not. So let's try it. So let's do form is equal to checklist form, which doesn't exist yet. That's okay. We're going to give it a request post. And we're going to put in, oh, hold on a minute. Why is this one using a model form? Yeah. So we're going to create our own form with our own attribute. Now I guess I'll follow, no I won't. We're going to say school year equals school year. Now, if form is valid, then we'll do form save, and then we will return return a redirect, right? Redirect to the same reverse. So we want to do reverse. Oh, somebody told me about a cool one the other day. What was it? It was in Django utils. Let's go look at that for a second. Oh, I don't have a local clone anymore. Man, so much stuff is gone. GitHub, Django. We're gonna go look at the Django source code for a moment. And in here, well, let's go one more level of Django. Why not? So there's the utils directory, and in utils is no. Come on, man. Where is it? Shortcuts. Where's shortcuts? So shortcuts has a few things in it, and somebody pointed out a new one to me the other day that I was unaware of. This thing right here, resolve URL, which seemed kind of cool. It's like I don't know, it just seemed kind of like a nicer way to do reverse lookups. So it will try to do a bunch of things, and then the nice part is it just handles the keyword args better. So let's just try it. I don't know if I want to keep it, but we'll try it out. Yeah, the handling of cleaned data is something that I would do in the form save method. So, which we haven't seen yet. I'm sort of sketching out what this view, so I try and keep the logic out of the views where I can. This view is actually getting a little on the gnarly side in terms of how much it's handling. But I'm still just trying to sketch it out. The goal here is like, get some code in place. I'm not doing any tests right now. I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that's sort of gross about what I'm doing, and get something that is kind of workable in place, and then come back and fill it in with tests and refactor the code to make it nicer and do all of those sort of things. So the other bit that we need for this, and the reason why resolve URL is kind of cool, is you can easily do more of this keyword arg style. If you're using straight reverse, you have to do the args, the list style, which is not as nice. So I think I'm digging it. I haven't used it before, but I think I will dig it. So we need redirect and we need resolve URL, both of which are in Django shortcuts. This will be redirect. This will be resolve URL. We don't have a form, but now you can hopefully see the flow. if the form isn't valid, I'm going to re-render everything. And there's really not any error states that this kind of form is going to have. It's just going to show the checkboxes again. Maybe I should put kind of some message in there in the future, but I can't even think of an error state that is going to be a problem right now. So I'm not planning to do that. No, that is not quite what I'm doing. So this app is already built. That is true. That's what I was saying. Like the School Desk app is a live site. You can go there right now. The source code is completely on GitHub. You can go look at all of it. I'm not rebuilding anything. I'm building new functionality on top of it. So that's part of that's what I mean is it's not this is not meant to be like some tutorial of here's how you could do this yourself. This is meant to be like, here's my journey. Come join me and learn along the way as I build out features. That's what I'm doing here. Hopefully that makes sense. So we've got our form is basically, I'm not going to worry about errors right now, and it's only going to do something if it reports back valid. I don't know what would cause it to be invalid. Maybe there'll be some error logic in there that will cause me to put some kind of message on here. So we need to create our form object, and that will do the bulk of the work. So we've got the display side of this tackled by all of the stuff that's down here. The processing side will be this piece, and then we've got this repetition that we got to figure out what to do with to clean this up. So let's go to the top, and we're going to create a new thing that doesn't exist yet. From forms, import checklist form. And that clears up the error at line 32, but now it says, hey, you don't have this checklist form because, hey, forms doesn't exist. So we can come to this area, create a forms.py. We're going to, from Django, import forms and create our new form of the checklist form, which will subclass forms.form. And create a checklist with excluded courses. That's what that form is going to be for. We need an init method on it, which will take school year and star args and star quargs. We're going to save the school year for later. Should probably put some type annotations on this too, but I'm not doing that yet. And then we need to call super with the init of star args, star quargs. This is a form. It's not doing anything except storing the school year. But I think, well, let's find out what happens. I think some stuff's going to fail if we try and post again. So looking back at our view that we have, it what did it do? Oh, I use this as a positional argument. So let's do this as a keyword argument. Get multiple values for keyword argument, blah, blah, blah. All right, forget it. Doesn't need to be a keyword argument. I'm sure I can make that right, but I just don't feel like it. This is simpler. Oh, but it's wrong. Ah, rats. So we're going to pass in the post as the first thing. It's been too long since I've made a form. Let me go check out a different form. What am I doing wrong? School year Thought this would work. Why not? All right. Forms, form. Oh, apparently I punted on the problem. Did a keyword only argument. Okay. Well, that's what I'm going to do, I guess. And we'll say, so it will, the way I wrote that other one though, it will blow up if I don't have the school year in the keyword arguments. So there's like a developer time check because I'm using pop without a default argument. And so that's going to cause this to insist that there be something on the dictionary to remove. Now if I write that, yeah, there we go. So we're going to get a form. What I don't remember is if the default form has an isValid method. So if we do a post, this will either return something and probably blow up here, or it's going to blow up at this step because it doesn't have isValid. Okay, so let's save, whoops. Base form, unexpected keyword argument. Okay, fine, fine, fine. All right, so isValid must be returning true, and then it's going in there and saying you have no save on your form, so there's nothing to do there. We didn't define a clean, so that's why it passed. Let's add a save. Bella, you're not too late. I'm still working on some of this stuff. I'm a little all over the place tonight, so I apologize if anything is too confusing. Feel free to ask questions. I'm at the point with my teacher checklist feature where I'm creating a checklist form that can actually do the filtering on the checklist that I've been doing. So I don't know if you remember what I've been doing on previous streams, but that's what we're doing. And I might work on this another 10 minutes or so and then wrap up. So the save is actually going to do the creation of the create or update the checklist. We'll get to that in a minute. So now this should redirect us back to the detail view or the checklist view itself. No, I went to the wrong place. I put in edit checklist. I wanted to go back to the actual checklist placed, not the edit. This is why check out stuff and make sure that we're doing some quality assurance here. See, okay, comes back here. So the loop then, we now have the full like loop, even though the processing is not happening. So the full loop is going to be, you come in here, you click the edit, you get like, here are all your courses. Still got to fix up apparently the spacing. I forgot to do that. All of these will be checked for the most part, and you'll uncheck things. So it's actually the reverse of what I'm doing right now. You'll hit save. It will take you back to the checklist, and the stuff that you excluded will now not show up here, which will be the flow that you want. So I noticed a couple things in that process. There is no spacing here, not cool. Let's go fix that. So let's go back to edit checklist. And this is going through the schedules and going through over each student and just spitting out each label. Now the problem is this is not wrapped up. All right, here, let's just do this. Let's wrap this whole thing in a div and do a class with a MB4 on it, margin bottom 4. So all of the labels for an individual student will be grouped together inside of a div. And that should, I hope, give the spacing between this last entry and the next student. Okay, cool. So now the styling feels good enough. It's not like amazing, but it is very functional, very clear as well. We need to come back and have all of the check boxes filled. So that's a piece that we did not do in this that we might need to wait for another stream. So let's see. To do. How will the checkboxes be set? Get checklist. Oh, Bello. Good question. Good luck. No, I'm joking. My experience with using WheezyPrint with Tailwind was mixed. Yeah, where do I start? You can do it, and I did it. And you can go look at my code. You're welcome to go. Again, all this stuff's open source, so go check out the report apps and check out the PDFs section. This is obviously very specific to my homeschool application, but when you get right down to it, you can see this part is the part you may care about. This is everything that I needed in order to create a PDF using WheezyPrint. And the key element here, and so some things to be aware of. WheezyPrint is not as up to date on the CSS specs that your browser is, so that Chrome or Firefox are capable of doing. So there were things that I tried to use from my Tailwind CSS file that dumped out as warnings from WheezyPrint of like, we don't know what this is. The easiest example that I can think of was colors. I think Tailwind CSS uses CSS variables now. I don't. This is, my knowledge of CSS is so dated that I only know that CSS variables are a thing. I don't know much about them. I think they have like dash in their name or something like that. And a lot of WheezyPrint included, a lot of systems don't understand all the latest CSS specs. So since Tailwind is using those features, WheezyPrint has no choice but to essentially skip those CSS attributes. So I think it's a good idea to make a report card using Tailwind and WheezyPrint, but be prepared to modify your Tailwind or have some custom Tailwind stuff or some custom classes that you include in your report in order to fully achieve the look. So you might need to do Tailwind plus a little bit of CSS to make it work all the way. And you can see, like, here was a weird example where Tailwind was selecting a font, but the font was not working for numbers or something really weird. So I went and I tacked on at the very end of the CSS that it was going to feed into WheezyPrint the fact that I wanted to use a font family of Arial, which is a very common font that is usable by WheezyPrint. So that would be my recommendation. I don't have any good guides. I just kind of cobbled together myself and got enough to make my setup satisfactory. So if you're doing advanced stuff, you can come back and teach me. I don't know what else to offer you. Hopefully that at least is a pointer in the right direction. All right, so we need to get a checklist and inject it in the context. And once we have the checklist in the context, assuming one exists, so On this other side, what we'll do is, right now we don't have a value set here. So we would ultimately do something like, for checkbox, I think it's checkbox equals checkbox or something stupid like that. I think you're going to just say checkbox. So just the presence of this checkbox attribute, oh, you're welcome, Bella, should make things checked. Nope. Checkbox equal checkbox? This is, again, so weird. No? Not checkbox, checked. There it is. Okay. So when we're ready to do this for real, what we're going to want to say is something like, if what? Course detail, course ID, not in checklist excluded courses, then we want it checked. Then we want this checked attribute. This might actually even work now. They're all unchecked because we don't have a checklist, so there's a problem. So there's going to be a case where we don't have a checklist. So we need a couple steps here. So if there's a checklist, then we're going to go into this other section. Otherwise, we're going to assume that everything is checked. Because remember, we're not going to create a checklist for every page view. So there will be the starting case where it's assumed everything is checked. So this will be normal. And then this will be the case afterwards once there's that data, which we've not put into the context yet. So if we did this, we should get everything checked now. Later on, when we come back here and we have a real checklist object, which I realize now I didn't do the right attribute, it's excluded courses, then this should be the right logic. Because I think what was happening before is it wasn't showing checked because a course ID is not, well, I don't even know how that was, I don't know what this logic even means. The checklist is none, so excluded courses is not a thing. So maybe the if statement was just saying, well, since this attribute isn't basically an attribute error, of course there's not going to be a course ID in there, so it's going to resolve that to false. That's probably how that logic worked out. But this is our block that we're going to need on the input side to make sure that we check some stuff. Then when we come back to our form, when we get to we need a clean method. Maybe. Let's just assume we don't need a clean yet. I think we do, but yeah, we do. All right. What do we need to clean? We don't want someone to be able to maliciously send a form that adds somebody else's courses to someone's checklist. Is that gonna matter? Let's say somebody was able to add somebody else's courses to your checklist. No, doesn't matter. They're never going to get this far. Because back on the view, not the TV show, this method right here is going to block anybody from getting any farther if they don't own the school year. So because there's code in there that checks for that. So I think we're okay without a clean method, because the only IDs that we're going to pass along, it would be self-inflicted damage at this point. So if somebody really is, the case I was thinking of is someone could submit a forum post that adds course IDs that weren't for any of their courses in the school year, and that could be a problem. But who cares? Like if you're going that far to modify your own checklist and insert some IDs for no reason at all, like that doesn't make any sense. And I could probably do some, let's do some filtering. It is possible that someone could conceivably stuff the checklist full of data that fills up my database. Now, again, this is like a case that's like, there's no way that this would exist in reality, but to even prevent against that, we can do this. We could say, ensure only real course IDs get added to excluded courses. That way, that's going to be the protection that makes sure nobody's dumping junk in there, or dumping junk that they don't have. We can just assume this is an example of following Postal's law, which you may not have heard of before. Postal's law. It's be conservative in what you do, be liberal in what you accept from others. So it's basically a way of saying you're going to be better off if you design your software to robustly accept junk data and still do the right thing. The be conservative in what you do part is the part that we can ignore for now. It's just saying like keep your limited scope. But the part we care about is the second half for now, which is it's essentially just a philosophy for how to design forms. So if we make it so that you could send all the junk in the world, but we'll only ever add excluded courses that map to stuff that's part of the school year, then the rest, that's not a big deal. Looking at your question, Albert. Glad you're taking the suggestion of building a website. That's good on you. Have a project. That's a good way to learn. Your front end is React, or that's what you want to use. Is it good if I use Django or Fast API? I think that you could be very successful in both. Fast API is really cool. In fact, I just kind of, at the last meetup that I did, that's what we talked about. We went through the Fast API documentation. It's pretty neat to see how type annotations can be used in powerful ways. That being said, my biased opinion, being the building SaaS with Python and Django stream, I have a soft spot in my heart for Django. Here's why. Django includes so much out of the box for you. And furthermore, you're talking about building a REST API. Django REST framework. I think it's django-restframework.org. Yeah. This is the piece of, if you're going to build a REST API, this is the piece of technology that I would highly recommend you pair with it. Django REST framework is a very powerful system for making really robust JSON APIs, which your React apps could consume. If you learned the material in here, you are way ahead of the curve. There is a ton of, it might seem overwhelming at first. It probably is overwhelming at first. But if you went through, here's what I would recommend. Try out Fast API's tutorial. It's very informative. You'll learn a lot. But then also come back and try out the Django REST tutorial. And as you're doing that, have an eye. So I predict where Fast API is going to come out looking like a real winner is like, wow, this code is really concise. It's really clear that I can express my types, and there's some really cool stuff there. And that's awesome. That's really powerful. Where I think that DRF is what people often call this, Django REST Framework, DRF, where DRF will come out and impress you, hopefully, is showing all this other stuff that you will get out of APIs built using this. So all of your authentication, all of your permission handling, all of your routing and generic stuff, and I don't know, there's just so much in here. So follow both tutorials and see what you think. I tend to think that the kitchen sink approach is a good model for getting into web development, because especially if you're new, you don't know what you don't know right now. So if you're trying to learn, you don't even know you're missing things. If you start with a library that's too small, that doesn't have all the pieces, what would happen in the natural progression of building that way is you'll build, and then you'll hit that thing of like, oh, I need to manage users, or oh, I need to handle web forms, or oh, I've got security considerations. All of those things start to pop up, and you're like, man, what? Now I got to go research this. Now I got to go look for an answer to this because the package that I picked doesn't have an offering there. I find comfort in the fact that Django and DRF have thought through a lot of those things. And so when you do reach that point of, I need to manage users, you can look in the documentation for Django and see, oh, Django's got an answer for how to manage users. And oh, it is really hooked into the rest of the system. So it's already like a first-class citizen. I don't have to integrate anything. This is the same argument that one uses when working with Rails, Ruby on Rails, or working with Laravel. Both of these ecosystems, comparable ecosystems to Django, have the same philosophy of, we're going to put everything into one package, mostly, with a good, rich extension ecosystem still, but a ton of stuff built into the core so that you can be very productive from the get-go. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. That's why I think Django is a good start, even if it's maybe initially overwhelming. Don't get overwhelmed, because that power is there when you need it. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. So finishing up, I think we're gonna wrap up here in a moment. So we kind of have like stuff checked. We're going to bring that data into the form. The save is going to like parse out all of the data that was sent to the form. The clean data should have all of the attributes that we care about. We'll be able to pull out the course IDs. We'll be able to compare it to the school year. So that's the other thing we need to do. To do is compare with all the courses in the school year to see what is not in the list. That's how we're going to get our list of excluded classes. And then we're going to save that. Once we do all of that, we're going to come back here and we're going to clean this stuff up. We've got just really obvious duplication that I think is going to merit cleaning. Like, there should probably be a little helper here that, well, I don't know. I'm still torn, because this weekday gets used separately from the week, because this method wants a weekday, not a week object. Whereas the week is used for some other stuff. So maybe there won't be as much cleanup as I thought. Okay, I'm out of gas for tonight. I do want to thank you all for joining in. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully the stream has gone okay. I've not actually checked on the quality of any things. I'm using Streamlabs instead of OBS now, if that means anything to you. As always, you can check this stuff out on YouTube. I take these videos and post them up later. So you can follow along. You can join back in, catch anything you want to get out of there. If you could do me a favor and leave a like on the video, that helps others check this out later. That would be much appreciated. And with that, I will catch y'all next week, hopefully. Take care.